Alrighty guys, hi, it's Amanda. I am back for another video. I'm going to start off this video by thanking all of my new subscribers and just informing you, if you're on my channel for the commentary videos, this is not one of those videos. I also have videos on here where I discuss my experience growing up in foster care and being adopted, and this is a continuation of my adoption story. I understand if this isn't your cup of tea and you don't want to watch it, I'm totally cool with that, but I do have subscribers who are on my channel for these videos, and it's my way of providing some education and just some advocacy for children who go through things, or adults who have gone through things like this that feel they may be alone. I'm also going to apologize for my makeup, appearance, and if you can see dog hair all over the place. One of my huskies has decided to go into another shed this year, and her fur is just everywhere. I can vacuum 3 times a day and everything is still covered in white hair. So I'm gonna apologize for that. But we are gonna go on and get into today's video. This video is not hard because it's so recent. I can remember everything, but it is hard to remember everything in sequence, if that makes sense, because this was such an overwhelming and shocking information and revelation that has happened from being adopted. And I just want to warn you now, this is probably going to be a long video because I don't think breaking this up will make sense. So this is probably going to be a longer video. So if you want to know how it goes, and this has more to do with biological family members, then I would suggest just to grab a snack and a drink, but I'm just going to get on into it. So I do want to preface that in my story throughout like the whole thing, I've slightly mentioned biological father, and I don't know if I ever clarified, so I'm going to clarify here. I was told that my biological father either A, didn't know anything about me, or B, knew about me and didn't want to be a part of my life. That's what I knew growing up. And then once I was adopted and old enough and, you know, kind of asking questions when you're curious, my parents told me what his first name was because they could remember it, because they had seen all those documents when they were getting ready for adoption. It's something that the state of Florida mandates the parents to do, is to kind of look through the child's file and kind of know where they're coming from. So they could remember his name, and they know he signed his parental rights away. So that's pretty much all the information I knew on my biological dad, and I didn't really care. And I never sought out biological father. I figured, you know, if at any point, really I was under the impression he just didn't want anything to do with me, and that sounds sad, I guess, if you think about it, but it didn't bother me. It really didn't, and I was fine with it. So it really was whatever it was. So that's just a little preface. I also want to say, in my last video I did talk about how I had seesaw communication with the biological family from that video, and I had blocked all of them. After some time went by, I would say probably a year, I did unblock all of their phone numbers and all of them from Facebook. So if they wanted to contact me, they had the availability to do so. They would have been able, if they had any questions or wanted to reach out to me, they would have been able to do so. But I was not going to be the one reaching out to them anymore. They never did reach out to me until all of this lovely part comes up. This happened about, I just turned 30 in May, and it happened on my 29th birthday. So I was at work. It was a work day. My job, I did a lot of driving for my job. So I was in my car driving. My husband really doesn't bother me when I'm working. He knows I'm too busy when I'm out on the road. So it was very rare that he would call or text me. And on this particular day, he started calling and texting me like back to back to back to back. So I was like, okay, there has to be an emergency. Something serious has to be going on. So once I got to a place, I was able to call him. I called him and I said, hey, what's going on? And he proceeds to inform me that he has gotten a text from an out-of-state number saying all of this stuff, like told him their name and that they know his wife, me, and gave him my name and said, you know, I think I'm her biological sister on her father's side. And I guess she continued to text him other stuff trying to prove who she was. And he was just calling me and saying, hey, I don't know what to do with this. And I was just like, okay, that's weird. Like, I was totally shocked. I was thinking, is this a scam? Like, is this somebody who just knows some information about me and is trying to pull a weird joke? Like, I had no idea what to think. The last thing I was thinking was that this could potentially be real in this moment. So I told him, I said, okay, well, you know, if they're bothering you, just give them my number and I will deal with it. So he did give them my number. And I was kind of anticipating not to get anything, that, you know, it would, when he's not feeding into it, it would just stop. That was not the case. Shortly after I hung up with my husband, I started getting text messages. And the person provided the same name, the same phone number that they had texted my husband on, and pretty much gave me the same text. I think I'm your sister on your dad's side, and I found some documents and I'm just trying to get in touch with you. I know it's your birthday. And I was so shocked and so confused. I was still not thinking this could be real. And I called my boss because in the job I had, our information, like any of our personal information, was really hard for public to gain access to due to the work that we did. And I was just like, I called her and I said, is there any way somebody could have gotten my phone number, my personal phone number? And she was like, no, there's not. And I was like, okay, well, then I kind of explained to her to what was going on, and she was kind of like weirded out by it too. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm just going to ask some questions, see if they can provide any information to maybe provide some legitimacy to what they were trying to say. So I can't remember what I asked. And I believe she asked if my phone number was Amanda, and I didn't deny it, but I didn't confirm it. And I asked a question back along the lines of, well, how do you know her? Or why are you looking for her? Or, you know, I asked some clarifying questions without giving any information. And the next, like, blockade of text messages I got was, you know, I found some documents in my mom's house and her name is on it with her mother's name, her biological mother's name, provided my biological mother's name, provided almost every legal name I have had, and was just, she just overwhelmed me with information she had on me. And I was scared. I was so scared in that moment. And I called my boss back and I was like, listen, I don't think it's like a good time for me to be working. Is it okay if I take the rest of the day off and figure all of this stuff out? And she was fine with that. So I also in that call asked her, is there any way that, you know, anybody could get any kind of documents like that to know all of my legal names and everything like that? Because this is when I was working in child welfare. And she said, no, all of the stuff from when you're a minor is sealed. So unless they actually have the document or have seen the document, they wouldn't know any of that information. So it also, at that point, I was just overwhelmed because I never thought in a million years that I would ever know who my biological dad was. And I never even really thought of the fact that they could have other kids because it's never anything I cared about or thought about. And I was just so like overwhelmed. And it wasn't like in a good way or a bad way. I was just so overwhelmed and confused and like I didn't know what to think. So I agreed to talk with this individual on the phone. And that's what happened next. We had a conversation. She told me, you know, she had already clarified who my biological mom was. She had confirmed she reached out to her on Facebook, who she then confirmed to her biological dad, and that they were in the same area 29 years ago, which was not in the US. So that's weird. And so it's just providing more validity to what she's saying. And she continues to tell me that, you know, the kind of person her dad is and her life, and you know, I'm just kind of opening up about myself as well. And then she asked where I was located, and I told her where I was located, and she said, no way, we still have siblings in that area. And I was like, okay, ... Like I didn't even know how to respond. And she was like, oh, well, would you be comfortable if I gave them your number? And I was like, okay, I guess. Like, it's a cell phone number. Like, if worse comes to worse, I could just block these people, right? So then all these other, well, one other person initially, she provided my number to, started texting me. And again, we're just kind of getting to know each other, kind of trying to line up the story and the lines to see if this is a possibility. And so far, everything is checking out. Well, then the other sibling in that area became aware, and she wanted to talk to me. And I agreed she could have my number, so we started talking. We met up a couple of times. Very nice lady. I mean, we all seemed to get along fine, but I was still, and I told them from the get-go, like, I don't care. I don't care for blood. If we are, cool. If we aren't, fine. And I explained to them this was never anything I expected or I wanted or I looked for. I wasn't mad that they had found me. I wasn't mad that we may be related. But I was just telling them, I'm not putting all of my eggs in this basket. And ultimately, to me, at this point, they were all still like, they wanted to do a DNA test to see if we were related. And I was fine with that. I didn't mind. Because again, I really didn't care. And during all of this, they tell their father that they have found me. And he then wanted to talk to me. Talk about awkward. Because I wasn't going to deny it. Like, what if? What if we were related? What if we are related? What if this is my biological dad that I don't even know what they look like, never knew what they looked like, you know, never knew anything about their personality? What if? Like, that, it could answer some questions, you know? So I was like, sure, why not? So him and I had a long conversation, and, you know, he was willing to tell me about his relationship with my mother and things like that. And I kind of told him I didn't want to know about it yet, that, you know, everything was so new and so fresh, and I was still so overwhelmed that I didn't want to overwhelm myself more, because I knew the kind of person my biological mom was, and I really didn't want to handle hearing anything else at that point in time. And he was respectful of that. And, you know, it was kind of like, well, nobody really knew where to go from there. He admitted to signing his rights to me away. And he told me he wasn't sure if I was his kid. He said some things about my biological mom, which I already knew, and made it questionable as to whether or not I was actually his child. And he stated, you know, he wasn't served the papers until he felt it was too late to do anything, and he was newly married and had married into a family with a woman who had children already. And I was like, listen, I don't hold any grudge against you. Like, you don't have to try and validate your reasonings to me. This is just weird to me. Like, that's all I could ever really say is this is weird. You know, I really don't care. As harsh as that sounded, I was like, I really don't care. At the end of it, if none of this works out, you know, at least maybe we've all made some friends. So that all happened. I hung out with the one potential sister a couple of times and we got along fine. And then finally we did get a DNA test that checks for paternal blood and DNA, which is harder. And you had to have, you know, at least 3 samples to do the test to have an accurate reading. So luckily there were 2 of them who had the same mother and father who could take the test against me to see if we were in fact related. So we did the test, and you know, we kind of all somewhat kept in touch and we're like texting, and you know, not daily, but just kind of keeping in touch here and there, which was fine. During that time, we found out that we were going to be stationed somewhere else and that we were going to be moving. So there was that also going on. And one day, I can't remember when it was. I wish I could. I can't though. I got a text from one of the siblings, potential siblings, that lived in the area, asking if I would give them a call. And I kind of knew it was going to be about the results, but it wasn't urgent to me. It was urgent to them to have the results. I could have cared less. I wasn't, you know, looking for my paternal side. I wasn't trying to build familial bonds at this point in my life. Like, if they happened, okay, like I'd be open to trying to build that, but I was not looking for it. So I got the call, and she, you know, she told me we weren't related. And it was slightly shocking to me just because the timelines and everything that we had all discussed up until that point made sense. And the fact that, you know, he signed legal paperwork signing his rights away, that, you know, how could there be anybody else? Kind of, it was always 50-50, and I kind of knew that, and I think that's why I didn't invest too much into these individuals. And not that there was anything wrong with them. They were quite friendly, and I didn't see any red flags or anything. So from that point, you know, they all kind of stopped talking to me, which was to be expected, to be honest. They kind of stopped talking to me, and there was a plan going away for, you know, my husband and I leaving the area. And one of them stated, like, no matter what, they wanted to be my friend, and that they would go and, you know, say goodbye and everything. And I was like, well, you know, you don't have to come, but if you want to, like, that's fine. And as I've always said, you know, I'm good with, you know, us continuing a friendship from this point on, and, you know, I'll see you then. And this was a few weeks out, and then the day came and nobody showed. And a couple of them had blocked me and, you know, stuff like that. So I just kind of blocked the rest of them and deleted them off of Facebook. And I was just like, you know, it would have been cool, but I wasn't hurt by it. And, you know, to me, it only really begs the question, like, I wonder who is my biological dad? Just out of curiosity, not because I want a relationship with that individual, not because, you know, I want to build that bond with anybody. I feel like I have that in my family. I don't feel that I need that, and I understand other adoptees do. I totally understand where they may have that feeling. I don't. So it really was just another chapter in my life, and who knows, maybe one day my real biological father will come out, or maybe some other real paternal siblings will come out of the woodwork. And if it does, I'm sure I'm going to handle the situation the same way. because ultimately I don't care. I'm not looking for, especially at this point in my life, I'm not looking to find those individuals. You know, I've gone 30 years of my life, and I have siblings, I have a mom and dad, I have aunts and uncles. I couldn't be happier in my family life. And that's not to say adoptees who do search for that aren't happy with their adoptive families. Some are, and they are just that curious, or they really just want to know. And I understand, I do. And I don't know why with me it isn't important and I don't care. Because most of the adoptees I come across, they do care and they do want to know. And you always see like the long lost connected siblings, or, you know, mother sons, mother daughters, and those are touching stories, but I don't want one. I personally don't want one. And if it ever were to come to that, I honestly don't know how I would handle that, and how I would, especially given this most recent, like, it was more eventful than that. It was more dramatic than that, than what I said at times. But my emotion about caring or not, if they were actual relatives, really stayed the same. And my family, they were aware all of this was going on, and they constantly were checking on me to make sure I was okay, and, you know, just being the absolute best and just trying to be supportive. And I think they worried at times that I wasn't okay with it and that I was struggling with aspects of it. But I really wasn't. I don't know if maybe like my intuition knew that these weren't biological people, or if I just really don't care. And I know I'm laughing about it because saying it out loud just makes me seem cold-hearted, and I'm the furthest from cold-hearted there could be, but it does seem that way. I think like talking this out and like talking about this situation in these videos back to back about my biological family, I don't care at all. I have no inkling whatsoever to have any relationship with my biological family. And I believe a lot of that is because I feel biological to my adoptive family. And I'm sure it's because they treated me that way. They never made me feel like I wasn't a part of the family. I was never treated differently. If anything, I was probably doted on more. And I don't know if that's it or if it's a combination of everything, but I don't know. It's weird telling this part and my previous part, because I do feel that people may take it the wrong way, may think like, oh, you know, she's a bitch or she's cold-hearted, which I am a bitch. I will own that. It's a running joke in my family. But I mean, I'm not cold-hearted. I just don't care about my biological family.